Hi, I'm Claire. I'm pregnant, I'm nauseous, and I want solutions. You too? There's so much advice out there about treating nausea and pregnancy, and so many people trying to sell you quick fixes. If you're like me, you want to separate fact from opinion. I'll help you do that with research. I'll tell you what meta-analyses and systematic reviews, summaries of the latest research, say about treatments for nausea and vomiting in pregnancy. What are my qualifications? Very few. I have no training in medicine or biology. I'm a researcher in a different field who likes to read studies to answer my own questions. This is not medical advice. When we talk about the field of research on nausea and vomiting in pregnancy, the "and" is a little misleading. The research field generally includes any severity of nausea with or without vomiting. If you're as queasy as I am, you may not want to hear those words spoken out loud. So for the most part, we're going to call this condition NVP. NVP is common. A meta-analysis of 59 studies across the globe found that on average, 69% of pregnant people experience NVP. Of those people, 40% have mild symptoms, 46% have moderate symptoms, and 14% have severe symptoms. Interestingly, this meta-analysis found that NVP rates differ by country. While rates were about average in Australia, Canada, Israel, Sweden, the UK, and the USA, for countries in East Asia, rates were higher, ranging from 75 to 91%. Meanwhile, rates in the Netherlands are lower, just 46%, and in India too, just 35%. Why? We don't know. The author said there wasn't enough information to determine the cause. So your likelihood of experiencing NVP may be determined by where you live, and it may also be determined by your genes. NVP tends to run in families. Research on treatments for NVP is important because it's not just uncomfortable, it takes a real toll on us and on society. We shell out money for treatments, we schedule extra doctor's visits, and we take time off work. That time and money adds up. One study estimated that the total cost of managing NVP in the United States in just 1 year, 2012, was $1.7 billion. That averages out to $1,827 per person treated for NVP. That per person cost varies by severity, with severe cases costing the most. That cost includes lost work time. The researchers estimated that on average, pregnant people lose 23 workdays to NVP and their partners lose 3.5 days. That's why it's so important to find treatments that work. I'm going to focus here on studies of non-prescription treatments, specifically acustimulation, ginger, vitamin B6, antihistamines, and dietary changes. But even though you don't need a prescription, it's still a good idea to discuss any of these options with your doctor. Let's start with acustimulation, which includes acupressure, electrical stimulation, and acupuncture. Does it work? Probably. A 2006 meta-analysis of 14 studies explored whether acustimulation reduces NVP. People assigned to receive acustimulation of any kind were about 50% less likely to experience nausea and 40% less likely to experience vomiting, compared to a control group. Those findings are promising. If you're going to try acupressure or acupuncture, which one's your best bet? Acupressure. The authors of this meta-analysis found that acupressure was effective for reducing NVP, but acupuncture was not. And a 2009 review reported that acupressure is likely to be beneficial for NVP, whereas the effectiveness of acupuncture is unknown. This review looked specifically at evidence on the P6 acupressure point, which is on your wrist and thought to reduce nausea. You can find YouTube videos about how to find it. I'll link one. You can also buy a wristband that would apply acupressure to the P6 point, but apparently about half of people find them difficult to use. So maybe save your money on the wristband and try the good old thumb. Why don't we know more about the effectiveness of acupuncture? Well, one of these research teams stated that there are few studies on acupuncture because people can't self-administer it when they're actually experiencing nausea, the same way they can for acupressure. If you've ever even spoken the words pregnancy and nausea in the same sentence, someone has probably mentioned ginger. I don't know about you, but when I'm nauseated, the last thing on earth that I want to eat is ginger. Still, it's important to have an open mind about the evidence, so let's see if ginger works. A 2014 systematic review and meta-analysis looked at 12 randomized controlled trials on ginger and NVP. Ginger improved nausea, but not vomiting, compared to placebo. Further, ginger didn't elevate any of the risks that they measured, such as miscarriage, heartburn, or drowsiness. Why does ginger work? The authors state that ginger can speed up the time it takes your stomach to empty, which relieves nausea. So maybe it works, but do you have to taste it? Turns out no. Most of these studies use ginger powder capsules. In research studies, it's important that participants are blind to condition. You don't want participants to know if they were assigned to take the active ingredient, ginger, or the placebo. If they can taste the ginger, they'll know they're testing something that may work, and that knowledge may influence their outcomes. So to mask that, researchers put the ginger in a capsule. For those of us feeling like we don't want to taste ginger at this time in our lives, this is very reassuring. You may be able to get the benefits without the flavor. If you're going to take a ginger capsule, what dose should you look for? The dosage used most commonly in these studies was 1 gram. The authors suggest dividing that up into 3 to 4 doses throughout the day. Do not go hog wild. The authors found that taking less than 1.5 grams of ginger a day may be more effective than a larger dose, and high doses of ginger can increase bleeding risk and stomach acid production. Also, I really hope this goes without saying, but do not inhale it. How long do you have to take ginger to see its benefits? Another meta-analysis found that taking about 1 gram of ginger for at least 4 days results in a 5-fold reduction in NVP compared to placebo. Another common recommendation for NVP is vitamin B6. A 2009 review found that B6 is more effective than placebo for reducing nausea, but not vomiting. By this point, we've got a few options to compare: acupressure, ginger, and now B6. How do they stack up? First, we'll look at ginger versus B6. A systematic review found no difference in NVP between people assigned to take ginger or B6. For the most part, there was no difference in risks between the two treatments, although one study found that ginger increased the risk of belching compared to B6. It's really the same story for acupressure versus B6. A review reported no statistically significant difference in NVP between acupressure and B6. So the choice between B6 and acupressure or ginger may come down to your personal preference. No discussion of nausea would be complete without mention of that classic motion sickness pill, dramamine. Dramamine is an antihistamine, and several studies have examined the effectiveness of this broader class of antihistamines for NVP. They seem to work. A 2009 review found evidence that antihistamines reduce NVP with no added risk of adverse effects compared to a placebo. Some studies have also compared antihistamines to ginger. This review found that taking either one for 7 days is about equally likely to reduce nausea, although antihistamines may be more effective and faster acting for reducing vomiting. However, one study did find that antihistamines made people drowsier than ginger. There are many other dietary and lifestyle recommendations out there for reducing NVP. Eating smaller meals, eating the minute you wake up, eating lemon or mint, the list goes on. These changes could work, but we don't have rigorous evidence to back them up. Multiple reviews have found no rigorous evidence of dietary or lifestyle modifications for NVP. So to round up our evidence-supported treatments, we have acupressure, ginger, vitamin B6, and antihistamines. There's no clear front-runner among these, so for the most part, you can pick whatever you like or what your doctor recommends. However, for vomiting specifically, some evidence suggests that B6 may not be effective and that antihistamines may be more effective than ginger. NVP sucks, and we all want help now. So I've tried to focus on studies that give us concrete advice, but I also don't want to oversell the evidence. A 2015 Cochrane review, which tend to be very rigorous, found that there is little strong or consistent evidence to support non-pharmacological therapies like acupressure or ginger, or pharmacological therapies like vitamin B6 for relieving NVP. More research is needed. But let's end on a silver lining. You may have heard that NVP is actually protective for your developing baby, and it seems that it could be true. A 2014 systematic review found that people with NVP are less likely to experience miscarriage or premature birth, and less likely to have babies with congenital malformations. Have other questions about pregnancy or parenting you'd like me to research? Have a favorite treatment for NVP? Leave a comment. Until that glorious day the nausea lifts, I am your sister in saltines, Claire in Progress.